Chapter 4. Public Goods and Externalities. In some cases, certain goods and services might not be produced at all. In other cases, certain goods and services might be over- or underproduced compared to what would be best for the society. These situations represent a market failure to achieve the outcome that is best for the society. Whenever there is a market failure, there might be a role for a government to intervene in the economy. Market failure is the inability of a market to produce a desirable product or produce it in the right amount. Two common cases in which market failures arise are production of public goods and services, production of goods and services that involve externalities. What are public goods? All goods could be separated into private and public. Private goods are rival. If one person consumes a private good, the other can't. Excludable. Only those who pay for goods enjoy their benefits. Bought and consumed by people individually. Produced and allocated efficiently by competitive markets. Public goods are non-rival. One person's consumption of a public good does not preclude others from consuming it too. Non-excludable. There is no efficient way to prevent people from enjoying a public good without paying. Subject to a free rider problem. Non-payers can enjoy benefits of a public good. Not produced or underproduced by competitive markets. Here are some examples of private goods. A pair of shoes, a cup of coffee, a car, a house, a haircut, a circus show. Examples of public goods are national defense, roads, parks, street lighting, environmental protection. Because of the free rider problem, government provides public goods and finances them through taxes. Market demand is constructed differently for private and public goods. Market demand for a private good is a horizontal sum of individual demands. Quantities demanded at each price are added up. Market demand for a public good is a vertical sum of individual demands. Individuals' willingness to pay per unit for each given quantity of a public good are added up. Optimal quantity of a public good is where the marginal benefit of this good, market demand, is equal to the marginal cost of producing it, supply. Consider an example of the economy with only two individuals, Adam and Benson. Each of them has individual demand for the public good, which obeys the usual law of demand. Adam and Benson are willing to buy less of the good if the price is higher. Thus, Adam's willingness to pay for 1 unit of public good is $4. But to induce him to pay for 2 units, price per unit will have to fall to $3, etc. Since a public good is non-rival, we add up Adam's and Benson's willingness to pay per unit for each quantity. We get a collective willingness to pay $9 per unit for 1 unit, $7 per unit for 2 units, $3 per unit for 3 units, etc. We can do the same analysis graphically. Start with the bottom graphs that give us individual demand curves. Add them up vertically to get the collective demand curve. If supply is given by the supply curve S, the optimal quantity of the public good would be 3, and the price will be $5. At this price, the collective willingness to pay for the public good is equal to the cost of producing this public good. Now let us turn to externalities. An externality occurs when some of the costs or the benefits of a good are passed on to, or spill over to, someone other than the immediate buyer or seller. Externalities are benefits or costs that accrue to some third party that is external to the market transaction. Externalities can be positive or negative. Negative externalities are spillover production or consumption costs imposed on third parties without compensation to the third party. Positive externalities are spillover production or consumption benefits conferred on third parties without compensation from the third party. When externalities are present, equilibrium output is not the same as optimal output. With negative externalities, the producer's supply curve is below, to the right of, the full cost supply curve. Therefore, equilibrium output is greater than optimal. In other words, overallocation of resources. With positive externalities, the market demand curve is below, to the left of, the full benefit demand curve. Therefore, equilibrium output is less than optimal. In other words, underallocation of resources. Graphically, consider negative externalities when the full cost of production is higher than that internalized by the producer, such as with pollution from factories. Then the total supply curve will be higher than the producer's, and therefore optimal quantity will be lower, and price will be higher than in equilibrium. In other words, there will be over-allocation of resources to the good with negative externality. Now consider positive externalities when total utility from a good is higher than individual utility, such as front yard landscaping. Then the total demand curve will be higher than market demand, based on individual demand curves. As a result, optimum quantity of a good that has a positive externality will be higher than the equilibrium quantity. In other words, there will be under-allocation of resources to this good. How to resolve the externalities problem? A few ideas were proposed. Individual bargaining. When property rights are clearly established, externality problems can be resolved through private negotiations. Coase theorem. Liability rules and lawsuits. The perpetrator of the harmful externality is forced to pay damages to those injured. Government intervention. Direct control through legislation. Specific taxes to bring producer's supply curve closer to the full cost supply curve. Subsidies and government provision for goods and services with positive externalities. Market-based approach. Government can create a market for externality rights, such as emission permits. To finance government provision of public goods and subsidies, and government provision in case of positive externalities, government is levying taxes on households and businesses. How is this tax burden, the total cost of taxes imposed on society, distributed? Benefits received principle. People who receive the benefit from government-provided goods and services should pay the taxes required to finance them. Ability to pay principle. People who have greater income should pay a greater proportion of it as taxes than those who have less income. The following two concepts are useful when discussing taxes. Average tax rate is the total tax paid divided by total taxable income as a percentage. Marginal tax rate is the tax rate paid on each additional dollar of income. Three types of tax are distinguished based on how average tax rate changes with individuals' income. A progressive tax. Average tax rate increases as the taxpayer's income increases. A regressive tax. Average tax rate decreases as the taxpayer's income increases. A proportional tax. Average tax rate remains constant as the taxpayer's income increases. The majority view of economists is as follows. The federal tax system is progressive. The state and local tax structures are largely regressive. A general sales tax and property taxes are regressive with respect to income. The overall U.S. tax system is slightly progressive. In addition to correcting externalities and providing public goods, government also sets the rules and regulations for the economy, redistributes income when desirable, and takes macroeconomic actions to stabilize the economy.